What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Debates with Nav on the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Pranav Sriraman. As always, make sure to go follow me on Instagram at Sports World Debates. And if you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, or if you just want to talk to me about anything sports related or life related, make sure to go tweet me at SWDTweets1. So today we are going to be going over the top 5 young cores in the NBA. And what do I consider a young core? I know some people have different definitions or explanations for what a young core is. To me, a young core is a collection of talent or players under the age of 24 on one team and has to be over 2+ elite talent. So it could be 3, it could be 2, because some people only consider 3 to be a young core. I consider anything above 2, like a dynamic duo or a trio, if you want to say, of the big 3, if you want to say it like that. I consider anything like that a young core as long as they're under the age of 24. And so, without further ado, let's get right into it. At number 5, I have the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the Atlanta Hawks, earlier this season, prior to the season starting, I had them around number 3 or 2. And why they fell off so suddenly is because I believe in Trae Young. But those other guys. You see, John Collins, he's a serviceable piece. I thought he was going to take the next step forward in his game this year. Unfortunately, he got suspended due to drug abuse, and he got suspended 25 games. But I expected him to have a much better season than what he's having right now. And I expected big things out of rookies DeAndre Hunter or Cam Reddish. Not both necessarily, but just one of them. I expected one to heavily outperform the other one, and neither have done exactly that. Both of them have been pretty mediocre. And so right now, at the current moment, I have to rank them at 5 because the only consistent piece has been Trae Young. John Collins could get there if he doesn't get suspended, but based on what we've seen this year, Trae Young is their only consistent piece. We have to see if John Collins can improve from his off-court issues, and when he's on the court, can he stay consistent? And those two rookies, Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter, are they going to consistently produce as they develop, or are they just going to stay as mid-tier players? That's the key for me, because before this draft, I thought Cam Reddish had potential to be a future All-Star, but he hasn't shown any of that. And I get it is his rookie year. He has a lot of time to improve, but based on what I've seen, I can't rank them any higher than 5. At number 4, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies, it's an interesting situation, because although they didn't really draft most of their young talent, they've accumulated it from trades. And a lot of their players are above the age of 26, but that duo of John Morant, who is their franchise corner piece, before the beginning of the year, I said John Morant's already their best player, even though Jaren Jackson was already on the team and proven. John Morant is the centerpiece of the Memphis Grizzlies, along with Jaren Jackson Jr., so that's a 1-2 punch, a point guard and a big man. You have that set, but they have so much consistent pieces around them that makes them a top 5 young core. They have players like Brandon Clark, who I thought was going to be a lottery pick, personally. I thought he should have been in the top 10, but he ended up slipping to number 21 to Memphis, which is an absolute steal, and it's been an absolute steal as he's put his name in some of the Rookie of the Year conversations. Obviously, John Morant is probably going to win Rookie of the Year most likely, and he's the best rookie on the team. But Brandon Clark has put himself in the conversation for maybe 3rd place or 4th place. And being on the same team as a possible winner, that is very impressive considering the fact that both of you guys have to take up a certain amount of usage when you're on the same team. It's the same situation for Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero on the Miami Heat, but it's even more impressive because I think John Morant and Brandon Clark are a better duo than Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero, and they probably take on more usage. I might be wrong on that. I'll double check. But that amount of talent on the same team, and they've both performed so well, it's just so phenomenal that both of these pieces have stayed consistent throughout the rookie year. And they've gotten so much back from the Andre Iguodala trade. They got back Justice Winslow. They got back over the trade deadline. They got back so many pieces, so many young pieces. They added Tyus Jones. They added Grayson Allen. Players from that Duke team, they've already formed a chemistry. They're just adding on to their young core of young players who aren't necessarily like superstars. We know John Morant is going to be a superstar. We know Jaren Jackson has potential to be an all-star type of player. Same with Brandon Clark. I think Jaren Jackson is better than Brandon Clark, but both of those guys are all-star caliber players somewhat in the future. But you don't have to necessarily have the most all-stars to have the best young core. You just need a solid foundation as your number one guy, who's John Morant, a number two, Jaren Jackson. If you want a number three, Brandon Clark, and then you have pieces around them that are all around the same age. And those guys are consistent. Yes, you're not going to get 30, 40 points from them in a given night, but they come out and produce. And that is why I have them at number 4. Moving on to number 3. This is where my decision gets kind of interesting. And it's kind of, we could say T2, which is tie for 2. But at tie for 2B, let's say, I have the Boston Celtics. Now, why do I say they're tied for 2B? Because although you have Jason Tatum, you have Jaylen Brown, you have Marcus Smart, you have a collection of young players. But they have, now it's not the best collection of young players like the Memphis Grizzlies or teams I'm going to mention further on, but they have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, both guys who are already all-star caliber players. And the reason I think they're 2B ahead of the team I'm going to mention on 2A is because they don't really have much other young players around them. I'm not talking about team right now. I'm talking about just the young core. And you have Jason Tatum, who is going to be a superstar, probably top 5 player someday in the league. And you have Jaylen Brown as a complimentary all-star. And those are 2 very good young pieces. Those 2 pieces alone put them ahead of Memphis, and they put them ahead of Atlanta. Now, with that being said, those 2 pieces alone, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who put them over Memphis and Atlanta, those are 2 great all-star caliber players. Jaylen Brown probably should have made the all-star team this year, but what's keeping them from being behind is Jaylen Brown himself. Like, I know Jason Tatum is already ascending into a superstar himself, but they need Jaylen Brown to kind of take that next step into a complimentary all-star. Yes, he should have made the team this year, but we need to see him more polished on the offensive end of the basketball. Jason Tatum can do that. Jason Tatum also plays great defense. Jaylen Brown, he's not like your natural scorer, but he could develop those skills. He has raw athleticism, he's a great defender, and he's an above-average shooter, but if he gets that skills to a next level, that can ascend the Boston Celtics past the team at 2B. And the team I have at 2B is the Dallas Mavericks. And the main reason I have the Dallas Mavericks ahead of the Boston Celtics is because Luka Doncic is better than Jason Tatum. Let's get that right out of the way. Luka Doncic is better than Jason Tatum. I know Jason Tatum is a better, probably pure scorer or whatever you like to say it like that, or he's a better defender if that's the only reasoning you have, but Luka Doncic does more for a basketball team. He's a better playmaker. He's arguably a better scorer, and he does it on similar efficiency. But with that out of the way, the gap between Kristaps Porzingis and Jaylen Brown is like they're on the same level. But keep in mind, Kristaps Porzingis is healing from an injury. We haven't seen Kristaps Porzingis fully healthy with Luka Doncic yet. And even then, they took a Mavericks team, which no one expected to be in contention this year, to a playoff seed. And they've been a top 4 playoff team for some parts of this year, even with Luka Doncic missing time and Kristaps Porzingis missing time. That is very impressive. And Kristaps hasn't even made a full recovery or, in a sense, gotten back to the full flow of the game. And they're still performing at a high level in a very tough Western Conference. And the reason Luka Doncic gives me that it factor, which necessarily Jason Tatum doesn't provide, is because he's going up against tough competition every night in the West, like I just mentioned. LeBron James, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Thunder, the Rockets, whatever you want to say. Luka Doncic goes up against that every night. But Jason Tatum, although he's in the Eastern Conference and has gotten better, the bottom portion of that conference is very weak, and it still is. And he gets to go up against lighter competition, and we haven't really seen him on an elevated stage. Yes, we've seen him in a playoff appearance, but in that run, he wasn't even the best player on his team. Let me get that clear. It was Al Horford. And we need to see Jason Tatum, in a sense, get his playmaking better to the level of Luka Doncic. to put him ahead of Luka Doncic. But even then, let's just scratch that whole argument between Luka and Tatum, because that could be discussed for another day. The gap between Kristaps and Jalen, Kristaps hasn't even made a full recovery, and he's on the same level. Imagine if Kristaps Porzingis elevates his level once he's made like a full transition into the game. And I know you're going to say, well, those are two players, but those two are the young pieces. And I'm taking Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis as a duo over Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, because those are their two young core. And I'm not saying the Boston Celtics are a better team, in my opinion, than the Dallas Mavericks. But if you're just going off those two, which one I'd pick as a duo, I have Luka and KP over JT and JB. And that's why I have them tied at 2A and 2B. But if I'm going to pick one, I'll take the Dallas Mavericks. Now, at number 1, you guys, this is going to be an obvious answer. I know some will beg to disagree, but it's really not that big of a controversy. It's the New Orleans Pelicans. The New Orleans Pelicans have Zion Williamson, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They're just loaded with talent. Josh Hart. There's talent all around. You have the main superstar who you drafted with the number 1 pick in this past NBA draft in Zion Williamson. And on top of that, you traded your superstar, Anthony Davis, this past summer to potentially acquire another superstar in Brandon Ingram and another all-star in Lonzo Ball. Future, I mean. But when you take that into consideration, you have not one, but 2 superstar caliber players. Every other team I mentioned before, every other team I've mentioned before this has only 1. New Orleans has 2. And on top of that, they have another all-star caliber player. Now, I'm not saying they're superstars yet or all-stars yet. I'm saying they're going to be. That's their ceiling. And maybe Lonzo Ball is the one underrated piece of this that many people fail to recognize for New Orleans. Lonzo Ball is a very interesting case. People love to hate on this guy because he hasn't necessarily lived up to the expectations LeVar has placed on him as a number 2 pick. Oh, Steph Curry with a 40-inch vertical. He's going to be better than Magic. Oh, no, but he's a very good player in all seriousness. He has a better 3-point percentage than Devin Booker on more attempts. You probably didn't know that unless you're following our media page. You probably didn't know that. Lonzo Ball's a very underrated shooter. He also has one of the lowest usage rates on the Pelicans, yet he's still averaging 12 points on great efficiency. And his playmaking has set up Zion Williamson so much that it's improved Zion Williamson's impact as well as Lonzo's. Zion Williamson has the second highest impact among power forwards, even higher than Anthony Davis himself. And Lonzo has a lot to do with that because Lonzo is the guy who sets up everyone. He does the little things. He makes plays for others, and he sets up everyone on the team perfectly. Without Lonzo Ball, the dynamic between Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson wouldn't be that great because both of them need the ball a lot. But Lonzo Ball conducts the offense, distributes the ball, makes sure each of them gets enough touches because they're high-volume scorers. And along with that, that allows the Pelicans to run their offense efficiently and smoothly. So keep an eye on Lonzo Ball. He is the one piece of this equation that many people fail to recognize, even though he's critical to the success of the New Orleans Pelicans. But getting back to Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. Zion Williamson, in his 19 games played, he's been tremendous. Every single game he's dominated, including his first game in the NBA, 22 points on 4 straight threes, whatever. But his impact has been undeniable. He's had a plus 13.1 net rating when he's on the court and something like a -3 when he's off. That means the Pelicans improved drastically with him on the court. Like, with him off the court, the Pelicans are a completely different team. And we saw that. We saw that without Zion at the beginning of the year. Once Zion got ingratiated into the starting lineup, everyone was talking about the Pelicans and their playoff chances. Before that, they were starting to scout lottery picks. That shows you the impact Zion Williamson has on that team. And although Brandon Ingram is probably better than Zion Williamson at the current moment, I'm taking Zion Williamson as the best player on that team as soon as probably when the NBA gets back. I think if you have Brandon Ingram leading your team this playoffs, you're not going to have much success. And I don't believe they'll have much success anyways, going up against LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the Los Angeles Lakers. But with Zion Williamson leading the way with his dominant presence, I believe they have a much better shot at probably taking a game or two than when Brandon Ingram has the keys to the offense. And that's a good problem to have as the New Orleans Pelicans. You have two superstars, potentially. You have two superstars, and you're concerned about who has to get more touches. That's a good problem to have. That means you have a foundation of talent, and you have to work with that talent. That's a good problem to have for the New Orleans Pelicans. And although there's concerns about Brandon Ingram's restricted free agency or whatever, New Orleans is going to offer him the bag, so he's going to stay. And that's just a core that I believe will dominate the 2020s in terms of championships. But that's it for today's episode. I'm out for now, y'all. Peace.